Hi again then guys, and welcome to another Beards and Bikes road test review. And some of you will probably recall that a couple of months ago on the channel I reviewed a pair of electric motorcycles, both naked bikes, the Zero SRF and the Energica EVA SS9. And if you haven't checked out those reviews, click the link down below and you can see those. Now though, we are reviewing another Zero, of course another electric bike, the SRS, the very eye-catching newest major model in their range. Now this bike is currently available for purchase, and for the sake of simplicity I'm using the official spiel from Zero's own website if you want to double check the specs and all the kind of blurb that I'm going to be talking about. And of course that means I will be talking about the prices in dollars. There's no point in me giving a conversion for you because USD to GBP changes every day, as many of you know, so do your local conversion as and when necessary, but I will be talking about some prices of course in this review. Now, as far as how this bike differs from, in particular, the SRF, that's an interesting point, because one of my favourite things about this motorcycle is, for all of the ways in which it's different, it's actually also very similar. It's different in terms of the looks, the ride feel, the practicality, and the overall appeal. It's the same in terms of the experience that Zero has with making electric bikes. It has a similar underlying platform, all of the great performance that that bike has, despite the fact that the SRF is smaller and lighter. So in other words, that means that this is a better performance machine if you think of it that way. And just across the board, it means that if you are, for example, an existing Zero fan, you have nothing to be concerned about if you're thinking about this bike as an upgrade. It gives you everything that the SRF can do, and then some. But let's talk about specifics. First of all, the spec. Of course, the battery and the charger has multiple options. It's not like a traditional bike, a sport bike for instance, where you choose what suspension and brakes and livery you want. On this occasion, the optional extras tend to be stuff like charge time related, battery size related, even stuff like the colour of the bike is pretty simple. There are two to choose from, blue or grey. They keep it simple. It looks good in both, but blue is definitely my favourite of the two. If you're gonna have a futuristic looking bike like this one is, you may as well show off on it rather than having it in grey, in my opinion. And speaking of those looks, it kind of reminds me in particular of two other bikes, the Triumph Sprint ST and especially the Aprilia Futura. Two bikes which are pretty widely loved actually when it comes to design, and this one I think is in good company. But of course, being electric, it's also much more unique. Now, as I said, the motor and the battery platform, even the charging platform, is very similar to what you can expect from the SRF. 110 horsepower, 140 pound-feet of torque, which puts the vast majority of sport bikes even to shame, of course. Direct drive, never change gear, relentless acceleration, as you'll see a number of times in this footage. Top speed, just like the other one, is limited to 125 miles an hour. 0 to 60, same, about 3 seconds, which is fantastic for a bike like this. And although of course you've always got the issue as a potential rider of what's the range going to be like, how heavy is the battery pack? Well, to speak to the weight first of all, I can tell you from experience of 3 primary electric bikes that I've ridden so far, with more planned in future at the English Electric Motor Company, which are always a pleasure to work with, this bike does not feel anywhere near as heavy as it is. And incidentally, it's also not as heavy as you would assume it would be. According to its specs on the Zero website, it weighs in at 505 pounds in its standard form, 516 in the premium form, and we'll discuss why in just a second. In UK terms, that's 229 kilos on the standard, 234 on the premium. So is it heavy? Yes, but actually not really. For an electric bike, that's pretty good. That's only about 8 or 9 kilos more than, for instance, a Suzuki Hayabusa, which is pretty beefy for a non-electric bike. That isn't carrying around some big battery pack, so for this to be a similar weight, I actually think is pretty impressive, especially given that this is physically larger than the SRF is. Now the carry capacity is also very impressive. Standard can carry 225 kilos, just under 500 pounds, and the premium a little bit less at 220 kilos, which is just over 480 pounds. So in practical terms, the bike itself weighs about 230 kilos, just above, just below, depending on the model. But it can also carry 2 people my size. In other words, 2 6'3", 250 pound people. I think that's pretty impressive for a tourer. And for normal sized people, that's probably you, plus a friend or acquaintance or relative or partner, and quite a lot of luggage as well. Again, perfect for a tourer. Now, in terms of being a tourer rather than a naked commuter, city bike, sport bike, what kind of difference does that make to the riding style? Well, the handlebars are higher, the seat is larger, of course you have the windshield, which makes a huge difference to the wind shear, and according to Zero themselves, if you duck down on the highway, it actually gives you a 13% improvement in efficiency, which is a nice bonus. Curiously, when it comes to the design, you'll probably notice that the wing mirrors are actually lower than the handlebars instead of above them, which seems like a weird choice initially, but it actually works really nicely. Instead of seeing your own arms in the mirrors, you can just see everything behind you. I actually really like it, and I kind of wish more bikes would do it this way. But what then about the batteries? Because of course with an electric bike, or an electric car even, you can have range anxiety. It can add a lot to the ticket price. In most cases it does add a premium because the technology is still relatively new, let's be honest, because there aren't a huge amount of people doing it. Well, the base price on this one for the standard model, no additional, charging or battery capacity, anything like that, is $20,000. And of course there's no point in me giving you the exchange rate, as I said, because it changes all the time, so you can Google that if you want to, or just talk to EEMC about their prices. So $19,995 is the base price. That's already competitive. It's similar territory to, for instance, the Ego, the Eva, and Zero's own SRF. However, the biggest change does occur when you start to upgrade, because of course when you make it the premium model, which has the 6 kilowatt instead of 3 kilowatt charging, which in other words makes the difference of 1 hour to get 95% battery instead of the longest possible time that this bike will take, which is the standard with a 3 kilowatt charger, just using a regular wall plug, no fast charging. That takes 8.5 hours to fully charge. That's worst case scenario. The premium model, on the other hand, with the faster charging, takes 1 hour to get 95% of its battery. So it does make a difference. And of course you are paying quite a lot more to have those kind of advantages. But again, it all depends on what you want from the bike, the kind of distances you need to be doing, because if it's just a weekend toy that you're not doing a huge amount of miles on, well, you could say, I don't really need that. If you're using it every day as a commuter, for instance, well then it's probably more essential for you. And speaking to the range, just before we get to the additional price of what all this will cost you, the range is up around 200 miles with that additional sized battery. So that's decent. Of course, in real life it will vary. You put your foot down and start going extreme on it, it's going to drop pretty fast, as it would with any electric vehicle, but that is the kind of range you can be expecting. Anywhere between 160 miles of city riding up to a maximum of 200 miles of highway with that additional tank. So what difference does that make to the price? As I said, base price is $19,995. Premium already jumps to $21,995. If you add the faster charging and the additional size battery, you are looking at the highest possible price with all of the extras applied of $27,000. And it's at this point that I would say it really depends on what kind of enthusiast you are. And I think there are two main types really. There's somebody who wants to be a pioneer of newer technology. That's the kind of person who will be looking to actually buy an electric bike now, such as an SRF, Ego, Eva, this one, whatever the case may be. Those people don't mind necessarily paying a premium because they enjoy riding tomorrow. In effect, it is tomorrow's technology, and even though it's far from perfected, it's certainly accelerating fast. You will always pay more for that. It's not just electric bikes. An electric car, a new type of phone, any type of forward-thinking technology that isn't being done by big brands already is always going to cost more. So that's no surprise. The second group of people, which I myself might be more inclined to be in, is those who really admire the technology, but are very curious to see what will happen in maybe 5 years to 10 years. Because it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if, for instance, 10 years from now, prices have dropped by $5,000 to maybe $7,000 on a brand new electric bike. Because the simple thing is, as the technology advances, range will be better, batteries will be lighter, and they'll actually allow these bikes to achieve more of what you could argue they're already capable of. There's no issue with the motors. The motors are fantastic, the performance is great, it's always the batteries holding these various bikes back. And it is improving all the time, of course, but batteries are still heavy, they're still the primary component when it comes to warranties and all that kind of stuff, and they are also what holds them back in terms of charge times and range. That is just a fact, and it doesn't matter who you go to, that's always going to be an issue currently on the market. 5 to 10 years from now, who knows where it will be. So for me, I would say the SRS is a fantastic addition, actually, to their lineup. It makes a lot of sense as well, because apparently the motors that they're using in both this and the SRF are not actually realizing their full performance potential yet. They're not built to. So there is more potential in terms of performance for the future of Zero bikes, and I find that pretty exciting because these bikes are very quick, but they could be even quicker, and in the future I'm very curious to see where they go with that. For the moment, I think that the SRS was a very smart choice on the part of Zero, because they're not trying to take on the Energica ego at its own game. Instead, they're slicing out their own new piece of the market, a fully fared tourer. Not a full-on sport bike, but not a naked city bike or commuter either, something in between. And I think that it's cool that between these two manufacturers, you've currently kind of got something for everything. Cruiser, naked bike, or full-on sport bike. Overall, of course, it depends on what your riding style is and what your needs from the vehicle are, but overall, between this and Energica, I think there's a lot to offer already on the market, even without other big players coming on the scene down the line. But overall, that's it for my thoughts on the Zero SRS. Of course, I'm looking forward to doing more reviews with the English electric motor company in the future. If you are based in the UK and want to book an appointment to ride one, then I would urge you to do that. Click on the link below to check out their website, and as I said, be sure to check out my reviews for the other two bikes on the channel as well, and stick around for more in future. And as I said, within the next couple of months, I'm hoping to be paying them another visit to ride an Energica Ego. But until next time, I'll see you then, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.